In a world shaken by miracles and mysteries, one man's heart is filled not with certainty, but with questions. Thomas, the walker of doubt, begins a journey unlike any other, seeking truth beyond the veil of faith. From the hidden doubts that haunt his soul to the distant lands where ancient wisdom calls, his path is one of courage, discovery, and transformation. This is the story of a seeker who demands proof, confronts fear, and lights the way for those who wrestle with their own uncertainties. Welcome to Thomas, the Walker of Doubt. Chapter 1. The Doubter's Journey. In the rugged hills and dusty villages of ancient Judea, Thomas moved with a restless heart and questioning mind. Among the 12 disciples, he was known as the Doubter, not because of disbelief alone, but because he demanded truth beyond words. Where others accepted the miracles of Jesus as signs of the kingdom of heaven, Thomas sought undeniable proof. His spirit burned with a fierce need for certainty, a hunger that would not be stilled by simple faith. From the moment Jesus called him by name, Thomas's life was forever changed, but not in the way many expected. While the others embraced their roles with a mixture of awe and devotion, Thomas wrestled with shadows of doubt and skepticism. He followed the Master not blindly, but with eyes wide open, searching for answers to questions that gnawed at his soul. How could a man command the winds and waves? How could the blind regain sight? And most troubling of all, how could death itself be conquered? His brothers in faith sometimes grew weary of his constant questioning, seeing it as a barrier to belief. Yet Thomas's doubts were not born of rebellion or cynicism. They were forged in a noble quest for truth. He was a seeker, a traveler on a lonely road where certainty was scarce and the unknown stretched endlessly before him. Every word Jesus spoke, every miracle witnessed, was weighed carefully in his heart, tested against the fires of his own reason. Thomas's journey was not only outward, but deeply inward. Beneath the skeptic's armor lay a man yearning for something greater, a love that could heal, a truth that could save. His skepticism was the crucible that refined his spirit, preparing him for the revelation that would change his life forever. In a world where faith was often a leap into the dark, Thomas demanded to see the path clearly lit. This path would lead him far beyond the hills of Galilee, across vast deserts, over stormy seas, and into distant lands where the whispers of Christ's message carried like wildfire. Thomas would confront not only external challenges, but the fiercest battles within his own heart. There, in the crucible of faith and doubt, he would discover a power greater than fear, a light brighter than the fiercest storm. This is the story of Thomas, the doubter, the brave seeker of truth, the man who walked through shadows and emerged into the dazzling dawn of belief. His journey reminds us all that sometimes the greatest faith is born not in certainty, but in the courage to ask the hardest questions. Chapter 2. Shadows of Uncertainty. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ancient hills, Thomas found himself wrestling with a darkness far heavier than the night. Doubt had followed him like a relentless shadow, creeping into his thoughts and clouding his heart. Though he had walked beside the Messiah, seen miracles that defied all reason, a gnawing uncertainty remained, a tempest within that refused to settle. Thomas knew well the whispers of the world, the voices that mocked faith as folly. Friends and strangers alike questioned the path he had chosen. How can you trust in what you cannot see? They asked. Their words cut deep, planting seeds of fear that threatened to choke the fragile flame of hope within him. Yet Thomas, true to his nature, did not shrink away from these shadows. Instead, he faced them head-on, knowing that faith without struggle was but an empty promise. In the quiet moments between journeys, Thomas would retreat inward, seeking answers in the silence of his soul. He pondered the mysteries of life and death, love and loss, the divine and the human. The questions he bore were not mere curiosities. They were the very weight of existence pressing upon his shoulders. How could he reconcile the wonder he had witnessed with the harsh realities that awaited beyond? His heart was a battlefield where light and darkness clashed. He longed to believe fully, to surrender without hesitation, but the shadows whispered doubts that no miracle could immediately dispel. It was a time of testing, a season where faith was forged in fire. Yet even in this twilight of uncertainty, Thomas sensed that something greater was unfolding, a revelation that would shatter the chains of doubt and ignite his soul with a fierce, unyielding light. The path before him was not easy. It demanded courage beyond the ordinary, a willingness to confront fears both seen and unseen. But Thomas was no stranger to hardship. His spirit, tempered by questioning and trial, was prepared to walk through the darkness if it meant emerging into the radiant dawn of truth. In these shadows, the seeds of transformation took root. Thomas's journey was far from over, but already the cracks of doubt were beginning to give way to a faith that would one day move mountains, calm storms, and embrace even death itself. This was the crucible that would shape him into the apostle of belief, a man whose doubts became the foundation of his unwavering devotion. Chapter 3. A Question of Faith. The dawn broke with a pale light, as if the very heavens hesitated to reveal the truths that Thomas sought so desperately. His mind was a whirlwind of questions, each one striking deeper than the last. How could he believe in a kingdom unseen? How could the promises of salvation hold weight against the cold, unyielding reality of the world? These questions were not born of skepticism alone, but of a heart aching to grasp the divine beyond mere words. Thomas was no stranger to doubt, but this was something more profound, a quest for certainty in a realm where certainty seemed impossible. His footsteps led him beyond familiar paths, both literal and spiritual, as he sought signs and answers. The world around him was alive with wonders and mysteries, yet his soul thirsted for the clarity that only true faith could bring. He remembered the words of the teacher, whose gaze held both kindness and challenge. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed, had been spoken with a voice that resonated like thunder in his heart. Yet how could one believe without seeing? How could he reconcile his need for proof with the call to trust beyond reason? In his solitude, Thomas wrestled with the paradox of faith, an invisible fortress that demanded surrender, yet promised freedom. He questioned not to reject, but to understand, not to falter, but to rise stronger. Each doubt was a step closer to truth, each question a bridge spanning the chasm between despair and hope. As he journeyed, Thomas encountered those who had witnessed miracles, whose lives were transformed by a power beyond explanation. Their testimonies were beacons of light piercing through the fog of uncertainty. Yet, for Thomas, faith was not a gift given lightly. It was a mountain to be climbed, a battle to be fought with courage and patience. The horizon called to him, a promise of revelation waiting just beyond the veil of doubt. And though the road was long and fraught with shadows, Thomas was determined to walk it. For in the depths of his searching, he knew that the greatest truth was not in having all the answers, but in the relentless pursuit of them. This question of faith was more than an inquiry. It was the crucible that would forge a spirit unbreakable, a heart ready to embrace the divine mystery with both reason and love. Thomas was becoming not just a seeker, but a witness, one whose journey through doubt would illuminate the path for generations to come. Chapter 4. The Silent Call. In the stillness of dawn, when the world seemed suspended between night and day, Thomas found himself grappling with a silence that was as profound as it was unsettling. This silence was not mere absence of sound. It was a vast expanse that stretched beyond the horizon of his understanding, beckoning him to listen deeper, to the whispers of his own soul, to the faint heartbeat of faith. The silent call came to him not as a thunderous command, but as a gentle invitation. It was the kind of call that does not demand immediate answers, but encourages a patient waiting, a slow unfolding of truth within the depths of the heart. Thomas realized that faith was not always about certainty or proof. Sometimes it was about embracing the unknown, trusting in what could not yet be seen. As he journeyed through remote villages and rugged landscapes, Thomas encountered people whose lives were shaped by this very silence. They spoke little of miracles or grand revelations, but their quiet faith burned like a steady flame amid the shadows of doubt. These encounters deepened Thomas's understanding that the journey of belief is often walked in solitude, in moments when the world offers no clear sign or assurance. In the solitude of the desert, under a sky vast and star-studded, Thomas meditated on the nature of his quest. The silence became a sacred space, a place where questions floated without answers, where longing mingled with peace. Here, the doubts that once seemed like chains began to loosen, replaced by a fragile hope that whispered of something greater. He recalled the teacher's words, spoken softly yet piercingly, about the kingdom not seen but felt within. That kingdom was not bound by walls or laws, but lived in the hearts of those who dared to listen to the silent call. Thomas felt that call as a flame kindling within his chest, urging him to move forward despite uncertainty. But the path was not easy. Shadows of fear and skepticism often clouded his mind. He wrestled with the weight of unanswered questions, the ache of loneliness, and the burden of expectation. Yet, even in these darkest moments, the silent call remained, a steadfast companion urging him onward. Thomas's journey was a dance between doubt and faith, silence and revelation. Each step forward was an act of courage, a declaration that the search for truth is worth the struggle. The silent call, though intangible, became the compass guiding his soul through the wilderness. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with colors of hope and renewal, Thomas embraced the silence not as an enemy, but as a friend. For in that silence, he discovered a sacred presence, a love that asked nothing but gave everything, a light that shines brightest in the darkest night. With a heart both heavy and hopeful, Thomas set his gaze on the distant horizon. The silent call was no longer a question, but a promise of transformation, of faith reborn, and of a journey that would lead him beyond doubt to the radiant dawn of belief. Chapter 5. Crossing the Threshold. The first light of dawn spilled like molten gold across the restless sea. Thomas stood at the prow of the ship, the salt spray biting his face, the wind tugging fiercely at his cloak. Behind him lay the land of his birth, a world of familiar doubts, unanswered questions, and restless nights. Ahead, the endless horizon stretched like a promise and a threat combined. The journey to India was no ordinary voyage. It was a passage beyond comfort, beyond certainty, into the heart of the unknown. His breath formed misty clouds in the cool morning air as he gripped the wooden rail. His mind churned with memories, the sharp words of the skeptics, the piercing gaze of the master, the countless moments of hesitation and challenge. He was a man forged in doubt, yet tempered by an unyielding hunger for truth. This journey would test every fiber of his being. Around him, the ship's crew bustled with urgent energy. Men seasoned by the sea spoke in hushed tones of fierce storms that roared like dragons, of monstrous waves taller than towers, and of treacherous currents that could drag a vessel to the depths. Thomas felt a flicker of unease, but it was drowned beneath a tide of determination. If faith was to be found anywhere, it would be beyond the safe harbors of his homeland. As the anchor was raised and the sails unfurled like great wings, the ship shuddered to life, pushing away from the rocky shore. The cries of seagulls faded, replaced by the relentless sound of the ocean's surge. Thomas's eyes scanned the endless blue, searching for signs, the flight of birds, the shimmer of distant islands, or the whisper of the wind carrying messages from gods or angels. Night fell quickly, the stars blazing fiercely overhead like celestial guardians watching over the fragile vessel. Each creak of the wood and howl of the wind was a reminder that this journey was no mere physical passage. It was a crossing of a threshold within his soul, from the known into the realm of faith and mystery. Days stretched into weeks. The sun burned mercilessly by day, and the cold crept in at night. Storms battered the ship with furious hands, lightning splitting the sky in jagged shards. Thomas stood firm through it all, his spirit unbroken. In the heart of the tempest, he heard a voice, not from without, but from within, whispering of courage, of purpose, of the light that could never be extinguished. The ocean tested him relentlessly, but with every wave conquered, Thomas shed layers of doubt and fear. He began to understand that the path he walked was as much a journey of the spirit as it was across the seas. Every star that guided him, every storm he braved, was a step closer to a destiny that would shape not just his life, but the lives of countless others. One evening, as the sky blazed with the colors of a dying sun, Thomas stood once again at the prow. The silhouette of distant shores flickered like a mirage on the horizon. The threshold had been crossed. He had left behind the land of uncertainty and entered a new world, a world of challenge, faith, and unyielding hope. With a heart burning brighter than the fading sun, Thomas whispered a vow to the wind, to walk this new path boldly, to seek the truth even where shadows gathered, and to bring light to those who dwelled in darkness. The journey was only beginning. Chapter 6: Trials in Foreign Lands. The sun had barely risen when Thomas set foot on the unfamiliar shores of India. The air was thick with the scent of spices and the distant murmur of bustling markets. Colors exploded in every direction: saffron robes of wandering monks, the deep blues and reds of silks fluttering in the warm breeze. Yet beneath this vibrant surface lay a world tangled in ancient customs, fierce rivalries, and mysteries older than the seas he had crossed. Thomas was a stranger here, his accent sharp and his customs foreign. His heart pounded as he navigated narrow alleys and crowded bazaars, each step echoing the silent question burning in his soul. Would the faith he carried survive this test? In the city shadows lurked those who viewed outsiders with suspicion and faith with skepticism. The warrior of doubt must now face trials of flesh and spirit unlike any before. His days became a tapestry of challenges. In the heat of the sun, he debated philosophers versed in ancient wisdom, their words sharp as blades. They tested his beliefs with riddles and logic, seeking cracks in the armor of his newfound faith. Thomas stood firm, not with arrogance, but with a humility forged in the fires of his own uncertainty. One evening, under the sprawling branches of a banyan tree, he encountered a healer whose eyes glimmered with the quiet strength of one who had touched the divine. This mysterious figure offered Thomas a choice: to continue the path of doubt, wandering forever in search of proof, or to embrace the unseen, to step beyond what the eyes could perceive and trust the whisper of the heart. Yet the trials were far from over. Darker forces stirred in the shadows, whispers of sorcery, of ancient rites that challenged the light Thomas bore. He faced men who wielded power not from the heavens, but from fear and deception. Each confrontation tested his courage and resolve. The clash was brutal, a battle not just for survival, but for the soul of the truth he had sworn to defend. In moments of solitude, Thomas wrestled with his own fears. The specter of doubt still haunted him, tempting him to turn back, to seek refuge in certainty rather than embrace the unknown. But each time, a fire kindled deep within, a flame of conviction that refused to be extinguished. His journey through these foreign lands was more than a physical trek. It was a passage through darkness toward a dawn of revelation. With every trial, every challenge met and overcome, Thomas's faith grew stronger, tempered like steel in the forge of experience. As the monsoon rains finally broke, washing the dust from the land and the weariness from his soul, Thomas knew that the path ahead remained perilous. Yet he was no longer the skeptic who had boarded a ship with trembling hands. He was a warrior of truth, ready to carry the light of faith into the darkest corners of the earth. The road ahead was long, but Thomas's steps were steady and sure, for he had crossed the threshold of doubt and embraced the fire of unwavering belief. Chapter 7: The Vision in the Night. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the rugged hills where Thomas had set camp, an uneasy stillness settled over the land. The vibrant bustle of the day faded into the quiet whispers of the night, and the air grew thick with anticipation. This night would not pass like the others. something beyond the veil of the ordinary awaited the restless traveler. Thomas lay beneath a blanket of stars, the cool night air brushing against his face. His body ached from the day's journey, but his mind raced with questions and doubts that refused to rest. The shadows around him seemed alive, whispering secrets of a realm unseen, a world that few dared to enter. Then, as the moon reached its zenith, a sudden calm swept over his heart, a stillness so profound it was almost a call. In the depths of sleep, a vision came, a radiant light piercing through the darkness like a spear of divine fire. In this celestial glow, Thomas saw a figure standing tall and majestic, cloaked in robes woven from the very stars themselves. The figure's eyes burned with infinite wisdom, yet held a tenderness that spoke of endless love. It was a presence unlike any Thomas had ever known, a vision of the divine, calling him deeper into the mysteries of faith. The vision spoke not in words, but in a language of the soul. Thomas felt his fears unravel, his doubts melting away beneath the radiant truth pouring into his being. He saw his path unfold before him, a journey not of certainty, but of trust, courage, and unwavering faith. The vision revealed glimpses of the trials ahead, the shadows he must confront, and the light he was destined to bring to a world shrouded in darkness. Yet the vision also bore a warning. The road ahead would be fraught with peril, and the night would often feel darker before the dawn. Thomas would face enemies both visible and hidden, forces that sought to snuff out the flame of hope. But within him now burned a fire rekindled by this divine encounter, a fire that would not be extinguished. Awakening with the first light of dawn, Thomas felt transformed. The doubts that had once chained his heart now lay shattered like broken glass. The vision had bestowed upon him a sacred mission, a calling to walk boldly into the unknown and to be a beacon of light for those still lost in shadow. With renewed strength and a heart aflame, Thomas rose to meet the day. The night's revelation was not merely a dream. It was a summons to become the warrior of faith he was meant to be, a bearer of truth in a world desperate for hope. Chapter 8. Whispers of the Spirit. The journey pressed on through unfamiliar lands, where every step Thomas took stirred the dust of ancient paths, and every breath carried the scent of distant mysteries. The road was long and winding, the horizon often veiled in shimmering heat or sudden storms. Yet, amid the vast unknown, a subtle voice began to rise within him, a whisper carried on the wind, faint yet persistent, calling him forward. This was no ordinary sound, but the voice of the Spirit, echoing deep within his soul. It was a presence that stirred the embers of his courage and the flame of his faith, urging him to listen beyond the clamor of doubt and fear. Thomas found himself drawn to moments of silence and solitude, where the whispers grew clearer, guiding him with a gentle but unyielding hand. In the stillness of a quiet grove, beneath ancient trees whose roots seemed to touch the very heart of the earth, Thomas knelt to pray. The Spirit's whispers became a steady murmur of strength, revealing secrets hidden from mortal eyes, visions of distant lands where hope had yet to take root, souls yearning for light amid shadows. These whispers spoke of a destiny entwined with both challenge and grace, a path where Thomas must become more than a seeker of truth. He must become a bearer of hope and a messenger of peace. The Spirit revealed the faces of those he would meet, weary travelers, doubtful skeptics, and brave souls ready to embrace the light. Yet the Spirit's whispers also warned of trials that would test every fiber of Thomas's resolve. Darkness would gather in unexpected forms, and enemies both seen and unseen would seek to turn him away. But within these whispered words was a promise. The Spirit's power would be his shield, and his faith the sword that would cut through despair. Each day, as Thomas traveled deeper into the unknown, he learned to recognize the Spirit's gentle guidance. A flicker of light in the eyes of a stranger, a sudden calm in the midst of a storm, a quiet strength rising from within when all seemed lost. These whispers were not mere words, but living breath, infusing his soul with the courage to face the impossible. With every step, Thomas grew not only in knowledge, but in spirit, awakening to a new understanding that faith was not the absence of doubt, but the courage to move forward despite it. The whispers of the Spirit became the anthem of his heart, a call to embrace the journey ahead with unwavering hope and fierce determination. As the sun set beyond the distant hills, Thomas lifted his eyes to the sky, feeling the Spirit's presence like a warm fire within. The whispers had become a roar, a mighty force driving him onward into the heart of the mission that awaited. Chapter 9. The Path of Courage. Thomas stood at the crossroads of his journey, the weight of the unknown pressing heavily on his shoulders. Ahead stretched a path shrouded in shadow and mystery, a road few dared to tread. Yet in his heart, a fire blazed, a fierce resolve kindled by the whispers of the Spirit that had guided him through countless trials. The path of courage was not one of ease or comfort. It demanded sacrifice, steadfastness, and a heart unyielding in the face of fear. Thomas knew that to walk it, he would have to confront not only the dangers lurking in distant lands, but also the storms raging within his own soul. As he took his first step forward, the wind howled around him like the roar of ancient battles, and the earth beneath his feet seemed to tremble with anticipation. Every shadow held a challenge, every silence a test. Yet Thomas pressed on, his spirit armored with faith, and his gaze fixed on the horizon where the light of hope never dimmed. Along the way, he encountered travelers who had faltered, their courage broken by despair. To them, Thomas offered not just words, but the strength of his own journey, a living testament to the power of belief in the unseen. His voice became a beacon, igniting the flames of bravery in those who had lost their way. But courage was not a shield that could deflect all harm. Thomas faced betrayal, doubt, and moments when the darkness seemed overwhelming. In those times, he recalled the Spirit's whisper, that true courage was not the absence of fear, but the will to act despite it. One evening, beneath a sky streaked with stars, Thomas sat beside a campfire and felt the weight of his mission settle upon him. The path ahead would lead him into lands foreign and often hostile. Yet he understood now that his greatest battle was not against the enemies he could see, but the shadows within, the lingering questions, the silent fears. With a steady breath, Thomas rose, feeling the fire within him burn brighter than ever. The path of courage was his destiny, to stand as a warrior of truth in a world desperate for light. As dawn broke, casting golden rays over the rugged landscape, Thomas stepped forward once more, a figure of unwavering resolve. The Spirit's whispers echoed in his heart, a steady drumbeat driving him onward. On this path of courage, every step was a victory, every breath a prayer, and every moment a testament to the unbreakable spirit of the seeker who dared to believe. Chapter 10. The Lost Apostle. The shadows of distant lands stretched long and deep as Thomas ventured further into the unknown. His footsteps echoed on ancient roads carved by time, paths whispered of in legends but trodden by few. To many, he was the lost apostle, forgotten by the world, yet driven by a fire that refused to be extinguished. For Thomas, being lost was not merely a matter of geography. It was a deeper exile, a soul cast adrift, wrestling with doubts that clawed at the edges of his faith. Yet in this wilderness of uncertainty, he found a strange freedom, a chance to forge his own destiny away from the judgments of others. His journey led him through bustling marketplaces where tongues of many nations twisted and turned like rivers of sound. He crossed vast deserts where the sun's fury tested his resolve and navigated dense jungles alive with the whispers of unseen creatures. Everywhere, his message was the same, a call to believe, to embrace a truth beyond sight. But the title Lost Apostle bore a weight heavier than any road. Whispers of betrayal and silence trailed behind him, as if the very earth remembered the moments he had questioned, the times he had faltered. Yet Thomas refused to be chained by his past. Each step was an act of defiance, a reclaiming of purpose that no shadow could diminish. In a remote village nestled between towering mountains, Thomas met a people untouched by the wider world, their eyes filled with curiosity and hunger for hope. With every word he spoke, every story he shared, the fire within their hearts was kindled. Among them, he was no longer lost. He was a beacon. One night, as the stars blazed fiercely above, Thomas sat beneath an ancient tree, feeling the weight of his journey settle upon him. The winds carried the voices of those he had touched, their prayers weaving a tapestry of light in the darkness. Though lost to many, Thomas had found himself in the hearts of those who listened. The lost apostle was a warrior of faith, a seeker of truth whose path would shape the future of countless souls. Rising at dawn, Thomas cast his gaze toward the horizon. The road ahead remained uncertain, fraught with dangers seen and unseen. Yet his spirit burned brighter than ever, fueled by a conviction that no distance or doubt could diminish. In the vast tapestry of time, the lost apostle was not a man forgotten, but a legend in the making, an eternal flame lighting the way for all who dare to believe. Chapter 11. Fires of Conviction. The dawn broke with a fiery glow that mirrored the passion burning deep within Thomas's heart. Each step he took was fueled by an unyielding conviction, a flame ignited by trials, doubts, and revelations alike. The fires of conviction did not merely warm his spirit. They forged it, unbreakable and resolute. Across the rugged landscapes he traversed, the message he carried spread like wildfire. Villages that once stood silent now buzzed with whispers of hope and courage. Thomas's words were arrows piercing through the veil of fear and uncertainty, stirring souls to awaken from slumber and rise to their own destiny. But conviction is not born of ease. It is kindled in the crucible of hardship and tempered by the winds of opposition. Thomas knew this well. Many nights, shadows of doubt crept close, attempting to snuff out the flicker of faith. Yet, time and again, his spirit rose stronger, a blazing torch cutting through the darkest of nights. In the heart of a distant city, under the watchful eyes of skeptical crowds and wary rulers, Thomas stood undeterred. His voice rang clear and true, a call to embrace a truth that transcended kingdoms and empires. Faces once hardened by disbelief softened, touched by the fervor of a man who had faced his own storms and emerged unshaken. The fires of conviction were not only his own. They ignited the hearts of those who listened, kindling courage where fear had dwelled. The flames spread, weaving a tapestry of faith that defied the shadows threatening to engulf the land. Yet the path was far from easy. Persecution loomed like a gathering storm, and Thomas knew that conviction must be wielded like a sword, both shield and weapon in the battle for souls. Every trial faced, every insult endured, only fanned the flames higher. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Thomas gathered with newfound followers around a crackling fire. Their eyes reflected the dancing flames, mirrors of the hope and strength growing within. Together, they vowed to carry the light forward, no matter the cost. In the fiery crucible of his journey, Thomas discovered that conviction was more than belief. It was the unbreakable will to stand for truth, even when the world trembled around him. With the fire of conviction blazing in his soul, Thomas pressed onward, an eternal flame guiding the lost, the doubting, and the brave alike toward the dawn of a new faith. Chapter 12. Battles of Mind and Heart. In the relentless march of Thomas's journey, no challenge proved more fierce than the battles waged within, between mind and heart, doubt and faith, reason and revelation. These were not clashes fought with sword or shield, but wars waged in the silent chambers of his soul. Each step forward was a test. The mind, sharp and questioning, demanded proofs, signs, and certainty. It probed every claim, dissected every miracle, and challenged every word spoken. But the heart, fierce and passionate, urged him to trust beyond the seen, to leap into the unknown with courage fueled by love. This internal conflict twisted and turned like a storm raging beneath a calm sky. At times, Thomas felt torn, pulled between the cold logic that demanded proof and the burning faith that whispered of deeper truths. Yet, in the crucible of this struggle, something extraordinary began to emerge, a balance forged from both mind and heart. The battles were far from silent. In the wilderness, where only the wind bore witness, Thomas grappled with visions and voices that tested his very being. Were these divine messages or illusions born of loneliness and desire? Each doubt was a spark threatening to ignite the fires of despair. But every trial only strengthened his resolve. The more his mind questioned, the more fiercely his heart clung to the vision of a love greater than understanding. He realized that faith was not blindness, nor was reason cold detachment. Together, they formed a powerful alliance, one that would carry him across oceans and deserts. As he journeyed through foreign lands, Thomas encountered others wrestling with their own battles. Skeptics, seekers, and believers alike stood at crossroads, caught between what they saw and what they felt. With words honed by his own struggles, Thomas became a beacon, guiding others to embrace the tension between doubt and belief, mind and heart. In the bustling marketplaces and quiet villages, he spoke of courage, not the absence of fear, but the will to stand firm amid uncertainty. He shared stories of his own battles, inviting others to confront their shadows and find strength in the dance between knowledge and faith. Yet, these internal battles did not shield him from external foes. Enemies lurked in shadows, seeking to crush the fragile flame of his mission. But Thomas, tempered by the fires within, met their challenges with a calm fierceness. Each conflict, whether within or without, was a stepping stone on the path to purpose. In the stillness of night, under a canopy of stars, Thomas often reflected on these battles. He understood now that the true journey was not to silence doubt, but to embrace it, allowing mind and heart to fight, clash, and ultimately unite in the pursuit of a truth beyond words. With every victory and setback, Thomas moved closer to the destiny that awaited, a destiny shaped not only by the world's trials, but by the fierce, unyielding battles within. Chapter 13. The Light Beyond Doubt. After countless trials and fierce battles between mind and heart, Thomas stood on the edge of revelation, where shadows of doubt gave way to the radiant light of truth. It was not a light blinding in its intensity, but one that warmed the soul, steady and unyielding, revealing the path forward through the haze of uncertainty. The journey had tested every fiber of his being. His skeptical mind had demanded signs. His restless heart had longed for peace. Now, in the quiet moments before dawn, Thomas sensed a shift, a dawning awareness that faith was not the absence of questions, but the courage to walk forward despite them. The light beyond doubt was a beacon for all who struggled with uncertainty, a call to rise above fear and embrace the mystery of the divine. It shone brightest, not in answers shouted from mountaintops, but in the humble stillness of a heart open to grace. Thomas remembered the faces of those he had met on his travels, the seekers, the doubters, the weary souls longing for hope. Each one carried their own darkness, their own battle with disbelief. But now he carried a message, that within every shadow, a light waited patiently to be found. He recalled moments when despair threatened to consume him, when the silence of the heavens seemed deafening. Yet, in those depths, the light flickered, the faintest glimmer that grew stronger with each step of faith, each whispered prayer, each act of courage. This light was not a final destination, but a constant companion on the winding road of the soul. It beckoned Thomas onward, beyond the realm of certainty and doubt, toward a horizon where love and truth converged. As the sun rose, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson, Thomas felt renewed. The battles within had forged him, and the light beyond doubt had become his guiding star. No longer a wanderer lost in shadows, he was now a traveler with purpose, a bearer of hope to those still searching in the dark. With the dawn, a new chapter began, a chapter not just of belief, but of living the truth found beyond the veil of doubt. And so, Thomas pressed onward, his spirit aflame with the light that no shadow could ever extinguish. Chapter 14. Foundations of Faith. The winds of destiny swept across the rugged lands as Thomas forged the foundations of a new faith. His journey was no longer just a search for answers, but a mission to build something enduring. Communities bound by the strength of belief and the courage to stand against the storm. Each step he took was a testament to the battles fought and the truths uncovered. In distant villages and bustling towns, Thomas preached not only words, but the power of conviction born from the light beyond doubt. His message stirred hearts, awakening hope where despair had taken root. But foundations are not laid without struggle. The forces of opposition gathered, casting shadows over his work, doubters, zealots, and fear itself. Yet Thomas stood firm, a warrior armed with faith sharpened by trial. His resolve was a beacon, inspiring others to rise and build alongside him. Through trials by fire and tests of spirit, the seeds of faith took root in the hearts of many. Stories of courage and miracles spread like wildfire, breathing life into the fledgling communities. Each gathering was more than a meeting. It was a fortress against darkness, a sanctuary where light flourished. Thomas's vision extended beyond mere survival. He dreamed of a faith that could withstand the tempests of time, a faith rooted deep in truth and nurtured by love. Foundations carved in the rock of unwavering belief, unshaken by doubt or fear. As stone by stone was placed with care, Thomas knew the journey was far from over. The path ahead was long, filled with new challenges and battles yet to come. But the faith they were building was strong, a fortress that could shelter souls through the darkest nights. In the glow of twilight, surrounded by those who had chosen to believe, Thomas felt the power of their shared purpose. The foundations of faith were set, not just in the earth beneath their feet, but in the hearts and souls united by a common light. The dawn of a new era was breaking, one born from the courage of a doubter who dared to believe, who chose to walk forward when all seemed lost. Thomas was no longer alone. He was a builder, a warrior, and a guide, leading the way with the unshakable foundation of faith. Chapter 15. The Legacy of the Seeker. The sun dipped low over distant horizons as Thomas, the seeker of truth, stood reflecting on the journey that had carried him through shadows and light, doubt and faith. His footsteps had carved paths where none dared to tread, paths that would echo through time as the legacy of a soul unyielding in its quest. From the bustling cities to the quiet villages nestled in valleys, the seeds Thomas had planted blossomed into vibrant communities of believers. His teachings, forged in the fires of inner struggle and outward trials, became pillars that held firm against the tempests of uncertainty. Yet, legacy is not measured by stones or words alone. It is carried in the hearts of those who follow. Thomas understood this better than most. His true gift was not just the knowledge he shared, but the courage he ignited in others, urging them to seek, to question, to journey beyond fear and hesitation. Across lands and seas, tales of the doubter who embraced faith spread like wildfire. Many found strength in his story, inspired to embark on their own voyages of discovery and conviction. The legacy of Thomas was a beacon, a guiding flame in the darkest nights, a symbol of hope for those wrestling with shadows within. But his journey was never meant to be solitary. Companions, disciples, and kindred spirits had walked beside him, each bearing their own light. Together, they formed a tapestry of faith woven from doubt and belief, courage and compassion. As Thomas prepared to face the final chapters of his earthly pilgrimage, he knew his mission was far from over. The legacy he left behind was alive, breathing in every prayer whispered, every hand extended in love, every heart awakened to truth. He was the seeker, forever wandering, forever questioning, forever shining a light where shadows lingered. And in that endless pursuit, his story would endure, carried forward by those who dared to walk the path he blazed. The legacy of the Seeker was not just a memory. It was a living, breathing force, a call to all who yearn to find their own truth in a world full of mysteries. Thank you for journeying with us through the remarkable story of Thomas, the Seeker of Truth. We hope his tale inspires you to embrace your own path of faith and discovery. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please subscribe and follow our channel for more epic stories of the apostles and their enduring legacies. Until next time, keep seeking, keep believing, and keep the light alive.